All right, what's going on? So I don't have any equipment with me. I'm in El Salvador. Look. So I was gonna make a huge video. Like I have a lot of stuff on my Instagram about what's happening in the world, the wars, all this stuff. Because I saw I saw a lot of signs coming, and people who follow me on Instagram all saw my post like 3 days before the U.S. was involved in the war. It's just very obvious. So I guess in this video, I tried this before when I was walking, but it was just too crazy, and I don't know, I was just sweaty and stuff, and just kind of sloppy, bad audio. So I'll try it here. So I'm just basically gonna, for this week's video, have a little freestyle talk. I've been going crazy with astrology. Whenever I'm on airplanes, I just go insane. So what were some takeaways? Well, there's a lot that's more spiritual. There's obviously the astrology of, very base, obvious. I'm not the only person who's talking about this, but every time Uranus enters Gemini, the U.S. enters a war, right? Now, also, there's different cycles in astrology based on different planets. Like you have Pluto, Saturn, right? And you look at you have Pluto, Saturn, you have Neptune, Saturn, which is conjunct right now. You have Uranus, Pluto. You have all these different planets, and if you're really trying to correlate history and astrology, that's what you do. You look at the cycles, and you're able to tell the conjunctions, squares, oppositions, etc. You're able to see themes that continue. That's a lot of what Richard Tarnas's work was about, and astrologers who are he was a PhD in history too at Harvard, so astrologers who are very much into history and correlating history with astrology, which is interesting. I really enjoy it, but it's something that I touch on, but my point is that this is not that video where I have notes and I have everything prepared. It's more so what comes to my mind. I have no idea what's going to come to my mind. I need to close this door more. So first thing is Uranus and Gemini, really zoomed out. Whether it's World War II, Civil War, and other ones I can't think of. I mean, U.S. hasn't been along for that long. It's every time. It's I think once every 84 years that it enters that sign, U.S. is in a war. Does it mean they lose the war? No, not necessarily. Right? We saw it happen with World War II. So I said that I knew it was coming. I also have had this intuition for years that Russia will be, I don't want to say the superpower, but just really, really well off. Look, when I speak, I don't care. Don't fucking talk. Don't say anything about politics. I don't give a shit. I don't care. I'm just speaking from rationality and from logic. Don't even think you know what. I'm not getting defensive. I'm just saying. This isn't about opinion. This is about logic, right? This is analysis. Analysis doesn't have an opinion, a bias. I'm a scientist. So Russia has always had a lot of, its history is very much tied to Neptune and Saturn, and the crazy part is that the fact that this conjunction is happening in Aries is actually, every time that it happens, something massive happens for Russia. I talked about this in a recent Instagram post, and this, coinciding with so many other factors that, once again, I don't have all the data here in this video, but I'm just gonna kind of explain it. I really do think that Russia, I get this vibe. Yeah, here I am. I'm saying this vibe that Russia will stay out of a lot of the big BS that's coming, and kind of get rich while everyone else is kind of fucking each other over, that kind of thing. And there was the fall of the Soviet Union, but and Stalin dying and the Bolshevik revolution. Those are all Neptune, Saturn, conjunctions. But the thing is that happened in Aries. The history of Russia is very, very long. There's actually, I don't have my notes, but when it's happened in Aries, it's been very, very, very positive for Russia, right? Very, very, very positive. One time I think was when they actually took St. Petersburg, and that was a war they won. One time was when they actually liberated themselves from the Mongols, which the Russians were apparently slaves to the Mongols, right? And when that conjunction happened in Aries, they took that over. This is all from memory, so if this should be accurate. Basically, my point was that these conjunctions are not always, they're always very significant to Russia. And Nikolai Stoyanovich, genius astrologer, he always said that Russia is Pisces, and I've always agreed with shit he said because he's a fucking genius. So that would make sense, Neptune. Anyways, beyond that, the signs are all there. Like whether you want to look at the synastry between Iran and Israel, you know, the seventh house of enemies. They both occupy each other. Seventh house, like the day of the first attacks on Iran, Uranus was 0.01 away from the moon of Iran, and there were just so many other like transits that were just like, you know, you look at the full moon in Sagittarius, right, with the Pluto, or with the Saturn square Jupiter, and just all these things. You know, Mars square Uranus was going down, and that was when like stuff was really, really crazy. And that's kind of how astrology works, is that you have the big picture energy, right, and then you have the you know, you have the trigger points, which a lot of times is Mars, and it gets you back to Mars. So I was talking a lot about you know, I believe there's an eclipse. This is where I have to like redo my homework, but there's a lot that was about, you know, 29 degrees Virgo, and this, you know, representing in astrology, you know, like kind of the dive into the underworld, right? It's like between the 6th and the 7th house, and I can't remember everything about that, but I just know that there's a lot of significance between that and war, and really looking also at the Saturn Mars cycle and analyzing the I can't remember like what I saw or who was talking about it. Like I went crazy. Like on flights, I put everything on 2x speed, and the entire time I'm just like watching astrology. So I just have so much in my brain, so I have no idea who was saying what. But like, yeah. So in the Mars Saturn cycle, it was actually very interesting that they're showing, you know, and the opposition is in the first 2 weeks of August. And that's also like, you know, around when Uranus enters Gemini. And it made me think of like, you know, sometimes you say things without really knowing them. Like I have a video from 2018 where I was talking about August 2025. I swear to God, go watch it on my channel, search Jess Sinison, I don't know what it was called, like 2025 or something. And it was me, like, this is in 2018, I think, right? I'm just going through the ephemeris of every year. I'm like, this is it. This is the time. This is the month. This is it. And like, I didn't think it would be like this, but I wasn't even looking at the Mars opposition. Mars opposite Saturn, right? So yeah, it's gonna be something. And they're really showing how at every stage during, you know, the Mars square Saturn, the Mars conjunct, and they were showing like a lot of kind of how different events that were very correlated to each other were happening at those points, and just kind of this point of everything coming together. You know, I can't think of words in English right now. In August. So I'm not about fear mongering. I think like I wrote also in one of my stories that I'm staring at this really cute bird. I wrote about how seeing the astrology and seeing how it was so obvious, it was so evident that this is like meant to happen. It gave me this like tranquility, right? This almost this serenity, right? Which is kind of linked to the surrender that I think is needed. Now, not spiritual bypassing surrender, you know, I think that it's actually the opposite of that. It's almost like whatever happens, to not have fear. You know, if you die, you die. That's how I feel. I know not everyone has that relationship with death. I apologize, but I'm just speaking my shit. But like, I think that right now it's a big test, a big spiritual test for people speaking out for what's right. And I think that if that leads to death, if that leads to whatever that leads to, you know, people like get too tied up in their lives. But what if the real test is like, what if like something like this is part of the test, right? And you have people who are pussies, people who are extremely self-interested, people who are just idiots and ego driven, and not to be negative, right? But you have people who are willing to die on a hill of a country like Israel. That slipped. Okay, let me rephrase. You have people who are willing to die on a hill of anything. It could be anything that they have that they like. For me, I just admitted it on Instagram that I didn't vote for Trump ever, but I preferred him to Harris for sure, right? But I didn't vote. I had this intuition: don't vote. Like something very strong told me, do not vote. It's a trap. And I was right, but I didn't really voice it. But now I see why my guides were like, whatever, why I felt like that. But my point was in my story the other day, last night, I was I told everyone, look guys, it's okay to admit you're wrong. It's actually a skill. Get good at it. Admit you're wrong. Be okay with being wrong. It doesn't matter. No one cares. No one thinks you're less smart or there's anything bad about you, and if they do, they're idiots. They're just anyone that would judge someone who admits to being wrong about something is just an idiot and not even worth your time. Anyways, I think my last point will be about Kali Yuga and something very, very big picture. And if you watch my videos, a lot of times I save the best stuff for last. So there's a 24,000 year cycle, right? The Vedas talked about this, and you guys probably know it as the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, the Silver Age, the Gold Age, right? And these are different eras that essentially, have to do with us at what distance we are, our solar system, our galaxy is compared to what some call as a giant black hole or the central sun, Alcyone. I'm not too clear. But there is an Indian mystic who was talking about increased, how he was pretty sure that Kali Yuga, which is the lowest vibrational time, had just ended in March. I believe March of this year. Could have been last year. I think it was this year. And basically a lot of what he was saying was that it reflects so much of this transitory period. And he was saying that he thinks that during these times, it's very common for the very authoritarian leaders and people who have had control to try to do more extreme things to try to hold on to control even more, because people's consciousness is rising, and you see it. I mean, if you even I'm not always online or anything, but if I look at something about what's happening, current events, I check the comments. I mean, it's night and day of how it would have been a long time ago, during the Iraq war or something, right? People are not cool with this shit. People have really educated themselves, and yeah, there's always gonna be idiots, of course, but that's just life, right? There's some people who just don't get it, and that's okay. Actually, it's not really okay, but it is what it is. So I think another part of Neptune, Saturn is education, and especially with Egyptology and a lot that's going to be discovered linking Atlantis to Egypt, and more and more evidence will come that is showing that mysticism and spirituality is actually what people in ancient times, they combine the two. And this rationality, this over-rationality, it needs to be peer-reviewed, right? The whole Terrence Howard thing, that's such a good example of what's going to come in the next 10, 20, 30 years, right? It's going to be the biggest geniuses are going to be people who don't have degrees. They're not going to be people who necessarily, got brainwashed in not to say that every person who goes to university, I went to university, it's going to be people who have that real passion, who are truly, doing it on their own, and will probably be rejected by the mainstream view. But that's the thing, is that true genius, a lot of the biggest geniuses in history were people who worked alone, right? And part of that is because when you're alone, you're not hearing idiot one or idiot two, you're not involved in the groupthink. So a lot of that Saturn, which is the system, and Neptune, which is kind of idea, it could represent idea, very spiritual, fluid ideas outside of this level of consciousness, mysticism. That's going to be a clash too. Anyways, I'll end it there, but I'll come with another video very soon that has a lot more detail on this. So I hope you guys are good. and talk to you later. Ciao.